There is good news and there is bad news. Let's start with the bad news first. There's one more type of zero that you may run into that's a little bit stubborn. The good news is we're going to discover these zeros in the same way that we found irrational zeros. In section 4.3.4, we will learn how to find imaginary zeros. Once all rational, remember those are the nice, neat ones that can be written as a fraction or a ratio. Once all the rational and irrational zeros, irrational numbers are numbers that cannot be written as a fraction, like square root of 5, for example. Once we get all of those out of the way, there still may be imaginary zeros. The important thing to remember about imaginary zeros is that they do not correspond to an x-intercept. So if you find an imaginary zero, it will not show up on the graph. But by using the degree of a polynomial, you'll know how many zeros to look for. Once again, the quadratic formula may be useful in finding these remaining zeros. So let's give it a try. We're going to approach the problem in the same way. Example 4, find all zeros of the polynomial functions. On example A, let's observe this is a degree 3 polynomial. So we are expecting at most 3 distinct zeros, maybe less if some of those zeros are repeated. Now, we need a place to start, so we will begin by graphing this function on our graphing calculator. Remember, we are looking for an x-intercept that will correspond to a 0. So we have a degree 3 polynomial. This one's interesting. Notice it only crosses the x-axis one time. So either the x-intercept there at 3 has multiplicity of 3, or there are imaginary zeros. So what we're going to do is get that easy x-intercept or 0 out of the way first. So let's divide 3 out of our original polynomial function using our synthetic division process. So multiplying and adding all the way across, we have confirmed, because of this remainder spot, that x equals 3 is in fact a 0. Now, if I look at the graph, remember, either 3 has multiplicity of 3 or there are imaginary zeros remaining, because remember, we're looking for 3 zeros. That means at most 3 x-intercepts. This graph only has one x-intercept, which indicates the other 2 zeros that we're looking for are very likely imaginary. So here's how we're going to find them. Following our logical process, remember we started out, this line represented a degree 3 polynomial, and after one round of synthetic division, this is a degree 2 polynomial. So this guy represents the polynomial x squared plus 2x plus 2. We can go ahead and set this equal to 0 to find the 2 zeros that he is encoding. To find the zeros of this polynomial, we can apply our quadratic formula once again. So we have negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, all divided by 2a. This yields negative 2 plus or minus, looking at our discriminant or radicand there, we have 4 minus 8. 4 minus 8 is negative 4, all divided by 2. Observe the discriminant, the little guy that lives under the radical is called the discriminant. That indicates that we are going to have imaginary zeros, right? What is the square root of negative 4? You remember how to simplify that? The square root of 4 is 2, and we use I to represent the negative under the radical. So splitting up our fraction here in order to reduce properly, we end up with negative 1 plus or minus I. Those are the other 2 remaining zeros, and notice their nature is complex or imaginary. So altogether, the zeros of this polynomial function are 3, that was the rational 0, the easy one, and then splitting these up, negative 1 minus I and negative 1 plus I. So we have 3 distinct zeros, although we only have one x-intercept corresponding to the rational zero. The other 2 zeros are values that would, if I plugged them back in, they would balance that equation when set equal to 0, but they do not correspond to an x-intercept. Now, don't forget about your factoring techniques. Remember, when we're finding zeros of a polynomial function, you can certainly graph it and use this synthetic division process. Or, if possible, you can use your factoring techniques. Notice on this one, we have a greatest common factor of x, so I can factor that out and obtain a quadratic factor. X squared plus 1 does not factor. Remember, the difference of 2 squares, x squared minus 1, factors as x plus 1, x minus 1, but the sum of 2 squares does not factor. So to solve this one, I'm going to set each factor equal to 0. Notice there's one rational 0. From this second equation, we're expecting 2 answers. Let's isolate the x squared and then apply our square root property to both sides, not forgetting plus or minus, to notice x equals plus or minus square root of negative 1. Well, the square root of negative 1 we generally represent as I. So we have 1 rational 0 and 2 imaginary zeros. So in our solution set here, we have 0, negative I, and positive I. If we graph this, here's a pop quiz. If we graph this on our calculator, how many x-intercepts would the graph display? Hopefully you understand it would only cross the x-axis at 0 because imaginary zeros do not correspond to x-intercepts. Just as a quick reminder, back up here, irrational zeros do correspond to x-intercepts. They're going to be between the tick marks, not exactly at an integer, but between the tick marks. So I will see an x-intercept for irrational zeros, but if there is an I, they do not correspond to an x-intercept. So you can certainly check that with your graphing calculator. Let's finish off this section by working backwards. We have started with a polynomial and found the zeros. Now we're going to say, let's start with the zeros and design a polynomial that exhibits those zeros. Last example, find a 4th degree polynomial function with real coefficients, p of x, with zeros, negative square root of 2, positive square root of 2, negative I, and positive I. So we are starting with the zeros and we want to form a polynomial that would contain those as the zeros. So we're just going to work backwards. Remember, if x equals k is a 0, then x minus k is a factor, right? It's just a difference in terminology. So if x equals negative square root of 2 is a 0, then its corresponding factor would be x plus the square root of 2. So there's one factor of our polynomial. We should expect 4 factors to go with the 4 zeros. Next, if x equals square root of 2 is a 0, then x minus the square root of 2 is a factor. We can do the same thing with the i's. If negative I is a 0, x plus I is a factor. And finally, if I is a 0, x minus I is a factor. You may have never seen factors like that, but you can set them up the same way. Now, we want to prove that this is a 4th degree polynomial. So we're going to have to do a little bit of FOIL here, and we're going to do it step by step with the easiest approach possible. These 2 factors are very similar, so I'm going to FOIL those, and these 2 factors are similar, and so I will FOIL those. Working on our first set here, make sure you keep this all in parentheses. The product of the first 2 terms is x squared. So x times x is x squared. The product next of our outside terms, well, they're not very compatible, so we're just going to glue them together. Minus x times the square root of 2. The product of our inside terms here, notice we'll glue those together, plus x square root of 2. And the product of our last terms, let's do this little by little. Positive times negative is negative, and then square root of 2 times the square root of 2 is the square root of 4, which simplifies to give us 2. Notice when you multiply a square root by itself, the square root cancels and you get the radicand. Just an easy way to think about that. Okay, so that takes care of the FOIL of our first pair. Now let's work on the FOIL of our second pair. X times x gives us x squared. Outside terms, x times negative I, I'll just call it negative ix. Inside terms, we have plus ix. And last, I times negative I gives us negative I squared. So we have FOILed both pairs of our binomials there. Let's go back and simplify. Notice how convenient this problem actually is. Though our middle terms are kind of ugly, they cancel in both parenthetical elements there. Reducing it down to x squared minus 2 times x squared minus I squared. Now remember, I squared represents negative 1. So I'm going to replace that I squared with negative 1. Remember, I represents the square root of negative 1, so I squared is negative 1. Don't forget also, you do have an I on your calculator. If you did forget that important tidbit, I squared, I is above the decimal, so type in second decimal I and square it and you get negative 1, okay? So I'm going to replace anytime I see an I squared with negative 1. That gives me a double negative in that second set of parentheses, so we can call that x squared plus 1. Okay guys, we got one more round of FOIL. But here's where we're going to see that this is a degree 4 polynomial. So the product of our first terms, x squared times x squared, gives us x to the 4th. Outside terms, we get plus 1x squared. Inside terms, minus 2x squared. And last, minus 2. Putting this all together, simplifying or combining like terms here, we have x to the 4th minus x squared minus 2. So there is a 4th degree polynomial function where if we were to backtrack our steps and factor, we would end up with those 4 factors, and those 4 factors would give us those 4 zeros. So that was pretty exciting. We got to work a problem backwards. I know you are excited about that. So thanks for listening, and you are ready to begin your section 4.3 homework.